Thank you very much, Mr. Scovin is reporting from the West now, particularly Moyo, trying to update us. The people there are adhering to the presidential directives and they did honor the curfew. Well, we are going into our next conversation. We are not going to take a break. In January this year, the World Health Organization declared the outbreak of a new coronavirus disease in Hubei province, China, to be a public health emergency of national concern. The UN Health Agency stated that there is a high risk of the 2019 coronavirus disease spreading to other countries around the world. And indeed, what was in a few countries spread globally and is now categorized as a global pandemic. Well, the COVID-19 pandemic has seen governments shut down cities, impose curfews, particularly in Uganda, what you've been seeing since at least Tuesday. Has seen governments shut down cities, impose curfews, and seen whole nations ground to a halt. So how do you ensure business continuity in such an environment? Yes, that is a very, very pertinent question. And to talk to us about this, we have Mr. Moses Ngorok, the Managing Director of Agribusiness, who is joining me via Skype. A very good morning, Mr. Ngorok.
Good morning, Romeo.
Ms. Ngorok,
how are you?
I'm okay. Ms. Ngorok, you're a lawyer and you run an advisory firm.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sure you projected the magnitude of this scale, that the coronavirus pandemic might actually swamp the whole world globally. But the people who did not know about the pandemic, what advice do you have for them? What is in store? What options do they have to ensure business continuity in the wake of the COVID-19 outbreak?
Yes, at Agribusiness, we've definitely taken stock of the fact that the coronavirus, as many business experts have noted, is definitely going to have an impact on business. If not, is already having impact on business. Some project that this is going to happen for a bit of time, because even after the corona pandemic, businesses are going to take time to, to get back to where they were initially. This is because naturally the steps that have been taken by governments, those are containment steps and suppression steps, have generally halted global supply chains and also has lower demand for services. We've, as you noted, a lot of industries have been affected: aviation, entertainment, restaurant. So at Agribusiness, we've analyzed the situation, and I'm going to give three pieces of advice, and this is for three phases of for three phases to deal with this situation. The first phase we see is a lot of businesses. This is for profit, non-profits, and even government parastatals are going to currently in a situation where they need to survive. What do we mean by surviving? Surviving means right now is that a lot of businesses made plans in January, but those plans have been disrupted by COVID-19. So there has to be a paradigm shift. That is, there's no time for wallowing. Yes, it's very sad what has happened to businesses. It's also sad that which is happening to people. We've lost a lot of people. But right now, the mentality has to change. Businesses have to move really, really fast. So what we mean here, something to give, in order to ensure this paradigm shift is remote working is an option for those businesses that that can get the employees to work from home. We're mindful of the fact that this may not be possible for all kinds of businesses. If you can get your employees to continue working, please go ahead and do that. The other thing is, if you can, important right now is also being able to negotiate with your financiers. That is, banks, a lot of businesses are leveraged, so you want to, you do not default on loans, otherwise that will be a problem in the medium term, because then a lot of banks will be foreclosing. So this a combination of help from the government on this front. We've seen, for example, that Bank of Uganda has taken measures to speak with the banks to allow for restructuring of loans beyond the two times allowed. And the other advice I'll give is just flexibility. You need to, if we've seen flexibility with some businesses. Some of these businesses have taken on, a new steps to make profits. You've seen the F1 team going ahead and coming up with ventilators. So that kind of engineering, creativity, innovativeness is required. So that is in regard to survival. Then regarding business continuity, how do you sustain business continuity? Ideally, what should have happened is that businesses should have had a plan, to ensure that in case we have an emergency, a disaster, that there's a plan on how to deal with it. And well, for those businesses that do not have that plan, for those that have, they can activate that plan right now. That is basically saying, what are our critical areas of operation? What do we need to keep running in order to make a profit? And for those that don't have, it's not too late. In the medium term, sit down, the next few weeks, sit down, identify those areas that need to be running so that you can continue making a profit. So develop that business continuity plan. And also alongside that, develop a framework to ensure that in case we have a repeat, this is a resilience framework. In case you have a repeat of this situation, you are better prepared. You're not caught off guard like we have been caught. I know a lot of the larger corporations perhaps have these systems in place, but the SME businesses, may not have these. And finally, the third advice would give, so once you have managed to survive, you've ensured that you've dealt with this disruption that has been caused by COVID-19, it is important to ensure that you have sustainable business policies. A lot of, in Uganda, I can speak for Uganda because I'm Ugandan,
yes.
We've noticed that a lot of businesses kind of like run, the smaller ones, a briefcase. I don't have policies in place. So you want to ensure that you have an alignment of your business policies, your mission, your vision, all in place. You have a business, a framework. You have a direction, you have a niche where you want, where you want to go, because specialty is king. If you specialize, then you are an expert in that area. You have a competitive advantage. And then on top of having the right policies in place, you want to ensure that you're monitoring your performance. Because if you do not monitor your performance, then you're not going to succeed. So we believe those are the three steps. First of all, survive. Then secondly, ensure that you have a framework for disaster preparedness. That is if you don't have one already. Then thirdly, there's going to be a need to revise after COVID-19. It can't be business as usual.
Indeed.
There's going to be a lot of changes. There's going to be a lot of changes. So at AfriBusiness, we have tried in the past few weeks to help businesses. We've carried out trainings, online trainings on Zoom, where we've trained workforces, managers and employees on how to shift from working from the office to working from home as a measure to actually continue business operations during this time. And we've also developed some digital tools that businesses can use we realize, if you notice, a lot of this advice I'm giving is very hard science.
Indeed.
And probably not everyone has the teams to implement, these measures. So we've provided support in terms of digital tools, a business planner that you can fill out on your own. It's a DIY kind of situation, do it yourself. And these tools come at affordable costs, so SMEs and the likes can use them. Yeah, that's our advice. Yeah.
That is a great insight, Mr. Ngorok. But management firm Deloitte says that in times like this, to ensure business continuity, having an emergency scenario is very essential. What should such a scenario look like for any business, especially in Uganda?
emergency situation. Could you repeat the question?
Yes,
It was a break
yes,
there.
the management firm Deloitte says that in times like this, to ensure business continuity, having an emergency scenario is very essential. So what should such a scenario look like for any business, especially in Uganda?
All right, yeah. So that speaks to my advice. That is phase two advice I just gave. Business continuity is about having a contingency plan. You know, nothing, we all know nothing runs smoothly. This is the world today. There's a lot of disruption, both can happen, as we've seen, even from a health perspective. So it is important that businesses are able to put in place a plan. And this plan is, we call it, technically, we refer to it as a business continuity plan. So the business continuity plan includes scenarios, likely scenarios. You plan for likely scenarios, scenarios that may adversely affect your business. If you're an IT firm, for example, you're thinking there could be a disruption once, due to a destruction of your IT infrastructure. So you want to plan for that, have in place measures on how to maybe have a backup system which you can resort to as you work on the main system. So every business needs a contingency plan.
Indeed.
Yeah, and that is what business continuity planning is about. It's about having a contingency plan.
Ms. Ngorok, in the case of most Ugandan businesses, I'm talking about the companies, especially the manufacturing ones. You get my point, Ms. Ngorok?
Yeah.
Yes, the president said that these employers should at least have their employees camp nearby the workplaces. Now, in your opinion, don't you think this is an extra cost on the business?
Yeah, of course, it may be an extra cost to the business, but I think in this current situation, what is paramount really is health. Health is paramount, and I think in this case, health is the overriding factor, which trumps both any cost. It trumps cost. In this case, I'm sure businesses will be understanding, because the truth is, it may be more costly not to actually follow the president's directives, because then if your employees die, then you won't have a workforce. So I would say, cost benefit wise, I would say it is really, really paramount for all of us to ensure that our health, first of all, is the first thing that we can afford during this period. Business, I should say, comes second in this situation. Yeah, I know business is dear to all of us, it's dear to us at Afrobusiness, but our health is most important. Yeah.
Rightly put, Mr. Ngorok. Let's veer to another situation. Let's talk about a complete shutdown, a worst case scenario. Now, we have people who rely on importation of goods for their production. You understand that, Mr. Ngorok? Yes. So there are some complaints. Yes. And global chains have been disrupted. You know that very well. How will these people survive? Don't you think a complete shutdown should be revised?
Yes. So fair enough. That's really a good question. The advice I've given is advice on a micro level. That is basically what business owners, employees, and management teams can do. But I believe there's a huge role for the government on a macro level. On a macro level, we see there's a potential, or there's actually probably a need for the government to actually come in and bail out businesses. There is identify businesses whose closure will have a huge ripple effect on the economy. In terms of laying off. Basically downsizings and the like. So it's important for the government to consider tax reliefs. So that is a modification of fiscal policy. We've seen the Bank of Uganda has recognized that they need to do that. We've seen also the government is also taking measures which may be indirect, but the giving of food is one measure. But we need measures that are direct to the businesses. So we're going to see a need to, so in order to revitalize business, because the truth is there's the, a recession seems very inevitable. So there's a need for government intervention on a macro level.
Ms. Ngorok, are our businesses ready for remote work? And do you think even after COVID-19, companies might carry on this trend of doing remote work?
Yes and no. The answer is yes and no. Yes, in the sense that research shows that skilled workers, older, that's management teams, white collar jobs can easily make the switch, working from office and working from home. Of course, I am mindful of the fact, we are mindful at Africa, this is not necessarily true for every business. I am very cognizant of the Ugandan context. Some people, do blue-collar work, and it's true that these may not be able to shift and work from home. But as an interim measure, as an intervention, I believe for those who can work from home, they need to do that in order to continue, and there has to be a shift. There has to be a shift. Of course, it costs a bit in terms of setting up at home. IT, collaborative tools, buying the collaborative tools, purchasing, but these are not too expensive. Again, cost benefit wise, it will be important that you continue doing business than, saying, no, we can't afford it. So I believe that a lot of businesses in and around Kampala, maybe in the urban areas as well, in other towns, are capable of working online. And I believe we should embrace that as an interim measure to deal with the current situation, the business standstill that has been caused by COVID-19.
And one last question, Mr. Ngorok. I need you to give me your most optimistic assessment on this one.
Yes.
Yes. Do you think we can come out of this with a new strategy, like import substitution, where Uganda can come out onto the global scene as an exporter of locally manufactured goods that are of high quality? I mean, we are talking about producing locally. So when this boils down, and we are not talking about the COVID-19 anymore, will Uganda come out as the exporter of high quality locally manufactured goods?
All right. That's a good question. If I may say, they say practice makes perfect, and they say practice makes perfect.
Yes.
And currently, this is probably the first time that we've seen a lot of, we're mindful, we know Bubu, build, buy Uganda, build Uganda. This is probably the first time we're seeing a lot of Ugandans relying on local products. Personally, I bought a local sanitizer. I use a local sanitizer for cleaning my hands. And I believe this is a really, really great time for manufacturers and small scale industries to actually, come up with products, add value to these products, and then ensure that we can, we can send it, these out to our neighbors. Hopefully our relationship with Rwanda will improve, Kenya and other, and also out of Africa. So this is a great opportunity. When I say practice makes perfect, this is the time to, practice and to this situation. So we can actually harness our expertise. And I agree with you. I'm very optimistic that we can actually get great products. Yeah.
Mr. Ngorok, very insightful conversation. Thank you very much for having made the time to speak to us.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
How will various businesses, circumvent the problem, bringing all the storm, the ugly storm being brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic? I think Mr. Moses Ngorok did actually expound on that and a lot more, so that you're in the know, you know how best you can continue